Hey, I'm Rachel,
I'm Justice.
and we're in charge of FCA this year, so we're really happy that you guys all came out to the first huddle. And if you're not already, make sure you join the Remind. Just text 81010 at FCA 1920 LHS, and if you need me to repeat that, you can come find me afterwards. But we're really looking forward to have more of you guys involved in leadership in the club. We're trying to connect with other schools, FCAs, making t-shirts to rep FCA around Liberty. So if you're new to FCA, if you're an incoming freshman, or you just want to see what it's about, make sure you get on the Remind so you can come to a meeting. And yeah, Rocky's going to be speaking, so thanks for coming, and then we'll have pizza after.
All right. Woo! Yeah. Hey, give it up for your representatives, huh? Yeah. Great. Well, hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Raise your hand if you guys know Jared Burris by chance. You know Jared? All right, just a few of you. That's all right. He sort of like helps organize a lot of this stuff, and so he asked me to come and hang out. I said, oh, absolutely, I'd love to. And so after I said yes, which was like, I don't know, about 3 hours ago. No, I'm just kidding. But it felt that way because it was literally 2 days ago. He's like, hey, would you mind speaking? I was like, sure. And I was like, oh gosh, what should I share about? I don't know. And so I started to pray. I started to begin to ask God, like, if I was coming to FCA, kind of a random thing, perhaps that's where you are. If you're in the room, you're like, dude, a friend of mine invited me, or you might be the guy, like I would have been, just saw pizza for free and I just came in. I asked God, I was like, God, what would it that they would need to hear? What's something that's going to, that you want to speak? So as I began to think about it and pray about it, I was trying to sort of put my mind or myself in your shoes. I think it's, 4 weeks we've been in school now? 4 or 5 weeks roughly, right? So we've been in school for a month, which is crazy because the rest of the nation is finally starting school. So you guys are ahead of the game. But in those 4 weeks, my assumption is some of you guys are already starting to feel the weight of your schoolwork. Can I get an amen? Yeah. Or hand raised. Raise your hand if you are feeling the weight of your schoolwork a little bit, okay? Let me get a hand if you're feeling a little bit of the weight of even extracurricular activities. You don't not necessarily a sport, but maybe it's theater, it's band, it's beyond. Maybe you have a job, right? There's so much stuff that's happening. You might feel the weight, or you might be experiencing maybe a little stress, a little anxiety. There's this thing in our culture called hustle. Anybody familiar with this word, hustle? Yeah, right? Hustle is like being on your hustle, right? You gotta get your money, you gotta do your thing. You gotta be the best that you can be. But what I've noticed is this, and high schoolers are really, really good at it. High schoolers are really good at doing what it is they have to do. You guys are very good at being students. I don't know if you hear this. You as a high school student are very good at being a high school student. You give your A effort, whatever that looks like, to your teachers, to your homework, to your extracurriculars, to your families, and to whatever. Now, if that is not you, let's tighten it up a little bit, but guaranteed, I believe that high school students are some of the hardest working people on the face of the planet. The reason why is because there's so much coming at you. You gotta do this, you gotta be at that thing, you gotta do community service, you gotta have straight A's, you gotta do this, this, and that for your transcripts to look solid for the school that you want to attend. Or maybe that's not even your boat. Maybe your boat is like, dude, I'm done. After high school, I'm finished, I'm going into the workforce. Whatever it is, everybody's always on their hustle. And when you're on that hustle, chances are you're gonna experience a little burnout. You're like, dude, I can't keep going. Give me a show of hands. If you're even in the 4th week, you're like, I'm so done. It's only 4 weeks deep in high school, you're like, I am done. Yeah. Exactly. See, here's the issue. There's a lot to do. It feels like there's only a little bit of time to do it. Yes, no? Yeah. Because before you know it, especially you seniors in the room, you're gonna be walking across the stage, hopefully in that stadium over there. You're gonna be walking across the stage and you're like, oh my gosh, my senior year is finished. And maybe you're a freshman in the room, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what high school's like. It's stressful. I feel lonely. I don't have friends. I don't have this. I don't have that. Maybe that's where you're at. Chances are, every single person in this room is dealing with something that's sort of like a mountain in front of them, just so massive and you have nowhere to turn. So I think what God has for us today is this. It's really simple. I don't know where your faith journey is. I don't know where you're at with God. I don't know where you're at with Jesus. You might come from a household that loves Jesus. You got like the Christian bumper stickers on your car, you got like the Christian shirts and whatever, or maybe you're the opposite end. Maybe you come from a family that doesn't care or doesn't have a Christian or a religious foundation. Maybe you come from a family that was hurt by the church, and because of that hurt, they're like, screw the church, forget about Jesus, that's not me. Which is that's a fair experience. I think what God has for us today is this, is to literally turn to Jesus. Literally turn to God, all right? I was cruising through some Old Testament stuff, which is in the beginning of the Bible here, and as I was preparing and as I was sort of going through study, and literally I was like trying to study as fast as I could, I was asking God, what is it that you want them to hear? And I believe God directed me to talk about, really briefly, this man named Joshua. Anybody in the room that has the name Joshua by chance? Is there a Joshua here? Hey, what's up, Josh? Is it Josh or Joshua? Joshua. It's like, no, dude, don't call me Josh, I'm gonna punch you. No, I'm just kidding. So there's a man named Joshua in the Old Testament, and Joshua had an interesting role to play because he followed after a man named Moses. Raise your hand if you've ever heard this name, Moses. All right, so we got some people that know Moses. Who's got a friend that their name is Moses? Excellent. All right, it's a solid name. So Joshua has now stepped in the role of this guy named Moses. And the reason why is because Moses died. He got old, he died. And part of Moses' role, his responsibility, if you will, was to lead God's people. Now I want to teach you a word, all right? Whenever I say God's people, I want you to think of this word called Israelites. Say Israelites.
Israelites.
Awesome. One more time.
Israelites.
Excellent. So Moses led the what?
Israelites.
And doing all kinds of things for God. Moses dies, and now God needs a person to fill his space. And he looks to Joshua, and Joshua is called into order, if you will. Now, when I was reading the first chapter, I highlighted it just so that I could just be like right here. There's some interesting language that God uses with Joshua. At this time, Joshua's kind of like an older man. He's maybe in his 30s, maybe in his 40s. He's familiar with responsibility. He's familiar with roles. In fact, he was a general at one time, so he's making choices for the armies that he was leading. He knows responsibility. But he's stepping into perhaps a new role, a new responsibility that he's never experienced before, called leading the what? To a place where God has chosen. Now, if you can imagine, Israelites, let me just kind of give you a number. There are thousands and thousands of people that are considered Israelites. And Joshua now has the role, the responsibility to take care of these people. Now, if you were given a role, a responsibility to take care of over thousands of people, you think you might be stressed just a little bit? Absolutely. You think you might worry a little bit? You think, oh man, what am I gonna do? Right? I experienced that this morning or yesterday. Like, what am I gonna speak on, right? I'm responsible to share to 60, 70 kids. What am I supposed to say? And here's Joshua, supposed to lead thousands on thousands of people into a space across this river called the Jordan. Familiar with the Jordan by chance?
Yeah.
Excellent. He was given this role, this responsibility. And so as he was given this role, this responsibility, God used a phrase to this man over and over and over again, which made me think that perhaps Joshua, just like y'all, might experience a little anxiety for the things that you got to do. Might experience a little stress in the things that you have to do. Because you can't get away from going to school, you can't get away from the yeses that you made, the commitments that you've made. Perhaps a lot of that stress, anxiety, and worry that's sitting on top of your shoulders is a little heavy, you know what I'm saying? So this is what God says to Joshua. He says, as I was with Moses, I'll be with you. As I was with Moses for his entire life, 100 years or so, I'm with you. Just as I was him, I will be with you, and I will never leave you, nor will I ever forsake you. You're going to be strong, be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit a land that I swore to their ancestors to give them. So he says that in verse 5, verse 6, and then in verse 7 he repeats himself. He says, be strong and very courageous. Not just courageous, but be very courageous. And then he repeats it one more time in verse 9. He says, be strong and courageous. And then he says, don't be afraid. Don't worry. Don't trip. I got you. Don't worry. He says, do not be afraid. Don't be discouraged, because for the Lord, your God, will be with you wherever you go. What I'm asking you to do, don't worry. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to have you take my people to this specific land on the other side of this thing called the Jordan River, and it's going to be fine. You're going to run into people that may not care about what you're about, but I got them. And in fact, in the beginning, he says, there's going to be some enemies that might come at you. Don't trip. I got them. I just need you to do this, and I'm going to be with you. Do not be afraid. Now, there's this grown man that potentially might be experiencing some stress, worry, and anxiety to do something God is asking him to do. And so Joshua has two options. One, obey, or two, not. As the story unfolds in verse 9, we discover that Joshua obeys. Because what other option did he have? Right? If he would have gone the other way, it wasn't going to work out for him. Imagine trying to operate, conduct, tell people, thousands and thousands of people what to do, how to do it, on your own effort. Put it to you like this. Imagine trying to get to the end of the semester, doing the semester or the school year, doing everything that you're going to be doing on your own. Forget about it. Some of you have. Some of you have done it already. You're spent. You're tired. 6 weeks of summer wasn't enough, right? You might have had a really great vacation, and that vacation, you needed a vacation from it because you vacationed really hard, right? You needed some time. There's no way that Joshua can do what God was asking him to do by himself. There's no way. And beyond that, there's potential that Joshua felt anxiety. And so Joshua decided to follow God. He said, all right, I'm going to trust you, God. I'm going to believe in you. I saw some of the stuff that you did when I was hanging out with Moses, and you healed people and you gave them food out of nothing. I'll follow a God that could just create food out of dirt. I'm fine with that. And he did it. He followed. So as I was thinking about it, I was like, I wonder if students, if there's one thing that they can receive today before they eat this manna called pizza. I wonder if a student in this room is like, yo, I'm done. I'm tired. I have a lot of roles, a lot of responsibilities, and there's perhaps a nudge on your side to follow God, but you're like, I don't know. And maybe the nudge started today, maybe the nudge started last week, maybe it started last year when you were at FCA or a church that you attended, or something you attended that you're not a part of a church, but your friend brought you there. Maybe there's a nudge for you right now to like follow God. For you that's not a Christian, maybe it's like, you know what, I want to discover who this Jesus is a little more. Maybe this Jesus guy isn't all the way the world chalks him up to be. Maybe actually this Jesus does care for the LGBTQ community. Maybe this Jesus actually does care for broken families. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus cares for me. Maybe that's the nudge. Because I'll tell you this much, he does care. He does care. Maybe you're in the room that you do believe in Jesus, you follow God, you've been a Christian, you labeled yourself a Christian some time ago because you decided to receive Him. But maybe you feel distant. You're trying to do this life thing, this world thing all by yourself. It's just not working out. The word I think God has for everybody today is to turn to Jesus, to receive Him. There was this one final little thing that God told Joshua to do. He says, be careful to obey all the law that my servant Moses gave to you. Don't turn from it from the left and to the right, so that you can be successful in what you do. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything that's written in it. Then you'll be prosperous and successful. Translation. Joshua, spend time with me. Learn who I am. Discover who I am. Discover the things that I have for you, and discover the way I'd like for you to live your life, because the way I, God, want Joshua to live his life is way better. The boundaries are more clear. Sure, it might be a little more safe, but in the end, it's worth it. I think the same is true when it comes to Jesus. I think Jesus is inviting us all to spend time with Him. Written law, translation for us is picking this thing up right here and just perusing it. Checking it out, reading some old school stuff, reading some new school stuff, which is kind of old school. Spending time with Jesus. The last thing I want to end with, because we got to get out of here in 3 minutes, there is any single person in this room that wants to receive Jesus, you're like, you know what, I've heard about this Jesus one time, I've heard about him 7 times, I've heard about him 17 times. I need to talk about him or discover him just a little bit more. Please do not leave without getting my phone number, because I know you got to go to class. I can't talk to you right now, but I would love to talk to you. But beyond that, there are some people. In fact, look to your left and look to your right. I guarantee you there's at least one Christian in this room. There's a person that follows Jesus in this room. Go attack them. Be like, I'm interested. Because it's going to be cool. Because the person that's a Christian be like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about Jesus. Oh my goodness. It's going to be awesome. But please do not miss out on this thing. You guys, listen. Please turn to God. Please follow God. Please follow Jesus. Cry out to him. Literally pray. It might seem awkward and weird because you're talking out loud to a God that you can't see or feel, but I guarantee you the God that is real will listen and hear you. I promise you that. I believe it. Or else I wouldn't be here if I didn't. So that's my prayer. That's what I think God has for us today. For everybody to turn and follow him. If he encouraged it to Joshua, and Joshua was successful, I promise you you'll be too. Let me pray. God, thank you so much for this space. Thank you for the opportunity to come into this beautiful gym that is celebrated with games and all kinds of stuff, to talk about yourself, to talk about you, Jesus, in a culture where this is not accepted, usually. Father, I pray for the heart, the student in the room that has a heart that's open, that's aching, that's hurting, trying to do life on their terms, and it's just not working out. And they actually are entertaining the idea of turning to you and following after you in your ways. Father, I pray that that student wouldn't leave this gym with a slice of pizza in their hand silent. I pray that they would connect with the student leaders of FCA, the students that are huddled around them right now, even myself, with their slice of pizza before they get out of here. Getting closer to you. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.